Sometimes games are just plain bad. It's unavoidable. They lack all charm, likability, or anything resembling redeeming features. But sometimes games are so bad that they actually come out of the other side and trick us into thinking they're good, even if only for a short time. It's not as rare as you think, there might be hundreds. But in the interest of brevity, here are 10 of the best bad games out there. 50 Cent Bulletproof, eh? That was a bad game. It was so bad, in fact, that no one expected a sequel to ever see the light of day. But Philly himself, the irrepressible badass that he is, was not to be put off. He, along with his G-Unit crew, returned to the world of video games a few years later with Blood on the Sand, a story about a bunch of foul-mouthed sociopaths who go on a murderous, blood-fueled rampage. And that's the good guys. Blood on the Sand is stupid, loud, mildly directionless and utterly devoid of subtlety, and yet, oddly, it's hugely enjoyable. It relies on swearing and helicopter battles way too much, but let's be honest, those particular issues are the least of its problems. The epitome of a game that's just bad enough to be good, 50 Cent Blood on the Sand is at least worth a wet weekend in front of the 360 or PS3.
What? By who?
When you've been in this line of work as long as I have, you learn to depend on certain rules.
Insomniac, the minds behind Ratchet & Clank and the other Ratchet & Clank games, first announced Fuse under the name Overstrike, a 4-player co-op squad shooter with more than a faint whiff of the original Xbox classic brute force, and a fun cartoony art style. Exactly what went wrong isn't clear. Fuse should have been awesome. 4 government-trained badasses on the hunt for a mysterious substance that could change the fate of the world sounds good on its own. Add in some outlandish weapons and a script that manages to be genuinely funny at times, and you should have a recipe for success, but by and large Fuse failed. If you're a shooter fan who's never played it, it's well worth a bit of attention, and it's under a tenner now too. If only for one psychedelic, hallucinatory boss fight that makes the entire game seem worth it.
This is not our fight anymore. Let's grab the weapons.
Gears of War released to a hail of positivity, hype, general good feeling and a slurry of cut-price copycats hell-bent on filling their brown and grey worlds with convenient waist-high walls, waist-high boulders, waist-high open car doors and waist-high bulletproof bushes. 2012's Inversion took the concept wholesale. Gruff Hero and his Latin American sidekick defend their world from lumbering alien brutes by running, bent double, from cover point to cover point. Inversion, though, added a unique mechanic which, at the very least, let it stand apart from the herd: gravity control. Ignoring the 2 fairly blatant fingers that it waved at the law of physics, Inversion's car salesman named hero cop Davis Russell cut an impressive upside-down figure, as things like neon signs and bolted-down chairs became cover points instead of dustbins and car boots. Sadly, overuse of the clever mechanic was unavoidable, and the nonsensical plot and macho posturing didn't help. Inversion's pretty crap, but it's unique, inoffensive, and accidentally entertaining enough to be worth playing. Like Inversion, Fracture takes an established genre, in this case, big guys with guns shoot aliens with guns. Wait, that sounds familiar. Anyway, it injects it with a wholly unique concept that more or less works for some of the time. In the case of Fracture, it is terrain reformation, no, seriously, which you can, well, reform the terrain, creating jump points and sinkholes and all manner of other interesting landscape gardening features for use when the pointing of a gun and squeezing a trigger just isn't getting shit done. In all fairness, Fracture is actually pretty decent, even if the terraforming never feels much more than a gimmick, and the rest of the gameplay is just terribly pedestrian. At least it's something fresh. It's not quite a guilty pleasure game, but it's pretty much okay. Rage is a weird one. Developed by id Software and published by Bethesda, the marketing and hype was geared to put you in the mind of a kind of Doom/Fallout hybrid. Upon release, however, what we got was a relatively hollow experience that attempted to dazzle us with its looks, but fell flat everywhere else. In actual fact, even the ridiculously pretty visuals resulted in some appalling screen tearing and texture popping. So why does it deserve a place on this list? Mostly because it was a horribly straightforward affair that somehow managed to be likeable. The fact that 100 years after the fall of the world, people who've lived in the same network of shantytowns all lived their lives are running around with Australian, American and Irish accent is a concern enough, but there's also the agonising emptiness of a game that's yearning for a levelling mechanic, a proper questing system, anything to make it not just be about failing to kill with point-blank headshots and driving around in the sand. It's a guilty pleasure game, that's for sure.
It's a dead giveaway.
Nary, forsooth, verily. While the sequel went a long way towards making up for some of the original sins, nothing could excuse Two Worlds for the worst scriptwriting in the history of fantasy RPGs. A game stuffed full of content and ideas and things to do was rendered all but unplayable by a network of bugs and glitches, unwieldy controls, a meandering story that's terrible, terrible pigeon Shakespeare it kept spouting. And yet, despite its catalogue of shit, Two Worlds has become something of a cult hit since its original release. If you've got nothing else to play and you're utterly chew your own arm off desperate for a fantasy RPG to play, you can't do a lot worse, but you might find yourself having fun with Two Worlds anyway.
Damn fool! You really think you can make a difference? It's too late.
Replacing Two Worlds' god-awful narrying and forsoothing with C-bombs and F-bombs, remarkably dull RPG Risen proved that developer Piranha has a bottomless chasm of ideas and inspiration, but nowhere near the budget or the bonds to bring it all to life. Risen 2 was no better, despite its pirate theme, and where the sequel is worthy of the hate directed against it, Piranha should have learned by now. The original is just hugely ambitious adventure whose reach exceeds its grasp. It's not terribly awful, the unintentionally funny combat and awkwardly foul-mouthed script are worth a few hours, and the utterly dull personality vacuum that is the protagonist is so vanilla and generic he almost becomes endearing.
That's the only warning you'll get.
Ignore the blatant face slappery of retconning Hicks back to life, win, only to dismiss the reasons behind it completely, fail. Ignore the fact they reduced the lethally intelligent xenomorph to a zerging moron. Ignore the fact that the very best part of the game is the first 5 minutes, and it's immediately crap from then on. And ignore the fact that the scriptwriting still thinks it's 1986. And Aliens Colonial Marines is so laughably bad that it actually manages to become B-movie enjoyable at times. And if nothing else, they nailed the sound of the M41A pulse rifle, right? After spending almost a decade in development hell, Duke Nukem Forever was eventually released, proving, along with Colonial Marines, that if Gearbox aren't making Borderlands, they're just making shit. Buggy, loud, crass, stupid, sexist, piggist, and relentlessly behind the times, Duke Nukem Forever is widely considered to be one of the very worst games of the last generation, but bear with us here. It's not all that bad when you're playing it. Yes, it's ugly and it's dumb and it's absolutely stuffed with things to do. From such immense epicness as repeatedly flushing a turd to racing a shrunken Duke around a war zone in a toy car, Duke Nukem Forever at least keeps its content varied.
Time to stop pissing around and get this big guy back into action.
Before Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, the only place to go for real-time beard growth was Access Games' Deadly Premonition, a Twin Peaks-style paranormal mystery game. It casts you as Francis York Morgan, a detective on the trail of the elusive Raincoat Killer. Switching between the town of Greenvale and the ominously titled Otherworld, York investigates various murders connected to the killer while his own sanity slowly unravels. Unashamedly weird, Deadly Premonition is also ridiculously compelling despite its mountain of flaws, and if you're the sort who can be swept along by a powerful mystery, then you'll fall in love with it. Utterly bonkers at times, it polarised critics like no game before or since, and continues to enjoy a dedicated fanbase. Deadly Premonition might be the epitome of so bad it's good. Are there any we've missed though? Any you don't think should be featured here? Let us know in the comments section. As always, remember, if you're nice to us, we'll be nice to you. Hit that like button, subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.